Congresswoman Brosas.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Hindi po in-identify dito kung dahil sa duplicate entries, no? O yung nangyari. Na-resolve na po ba yung duplicate entries? Nakapagbigay na po ba ang mga LGUs ng tamang datos para sa lahat? Kaya hindi siya kasama sa dahilan ng usapin ng duplicate entries before? I remember, tinanong ko po ito last time, yung first hearing pa natin, ano po?
DSWD.
Mr. Chair, Honor, may I request Yusek Pamonag to answer the question?
Yusek Pamonag.
Mr. Chair, we have some 80,000 discovered by the DSWD who receive double social amelioration programs. So we are intensifying our deduplication process, including our broadcast to the media, encouraging our kababayans, especially those who are receiving two tranches of ameliorations to return said amelioration. Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, sinasabi po ba? Yes, Mr. Chair, sinasabi po ba ng DSWD na hindi ito ang dahilan at na-resolve na nila ito fully?
Yusek Pamonag.
Ito ang tanong ko eh.
This could affect really yung to fast track the distribution, but as I mentioned earlier, ongoing yung aming deduplications na ginaganap dito sa ating mga FOs. That's why it's taking us time para maiwasan yung ganito karaming deduplications na umabot sa 80,000. No? And this was the reason why it took us this long, no? Knowing the problems, recognizing the problems, so that maibigay natin sa ating mga kababayan ang mga nararapat na ayuda. Mr. Chair.
Congresswoman Brosas, meron ka pa po bang natitirang katanungan?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, on to my second question, yung progress po ng 5 million waitlisted families, supposedly for first tranche. Napansin po namin, hindi ito reflected, itong 5 million sa previous weekly reports ng Malacanang kaugnay sa Bayanihan Act. 5 million is more than 1/4 of the 18 billion target beneficiaries for the first tranche. Ano pong nangyari dito? Ano po ang progress dito?
Yusek Pamonag.
We have started giving SAP to the waitlisted beneficiaries, and as of this time, there are more or less 842,978 who received the second tranche social amelioration. Mr. Chair.
So, Mr. Chair, ilan pa lang yon? Konti po yun. Ilang porsyento lang yon out of the 5 billion na waitlisted natin. So you're starting pa lang, Mr. Chair?
Yusek Pamonag.
Yes, the figures may seem to be small, but other than the waitlisted, we are also giving to those non-Pantawid beneficiaries, including the Pantawid beneficiaries. So overall, if you would see, binibigyan namin ng waitlisted ang non-Pantawid members and those who are holding cash card na ating mga Pantawid members. And this is approximately 3.2 million beneficiaries overall.
Mr. Chair, yung may mga ilang halimbawa na kumpleto na yung listahan ng LGUs. wala nang double entries o duplication at may liquidation na ng first tranche. Pero hanggang ngayon, hindi pa rin nare-release ang pondo para sa second tranche. Do you have the list of that, Mr. Chair?
DSWD?
Mr. Chair, may I also again request Yusek Pamonag to be recognized, Mr. Chair.
Yusek Pamonag?
Mr. Chair, it's yung predicament na sinabi ni Congresswoman kanina because of the challenges sa duplication natin, that was the one of the reasons bakit hindi pa rin natin lahat na i-release. But we are doubling our time, trying our best na makaabot immediately sa ating mga kababayan ang social habilitation program na nararapat sa kanila. That's why we see at the end of this month na maka-accomplish yung 80% and others would be for the month of August.
Mr. Chair, nasa kalahati na tayo ng Hulyo, subalit gumagapang pa rin yung progress natin sa pamimigay ng ayuda. Tapos, nababasa natin sa balita, ayon mismo sa DSWD, 80% lang ng 12 million families ang kaya nilang saklawin sa pagtatapos ng buwan na ito. Magsusona na ang Pangulo, pero nga pa rin yung milyon-milyon nating mga Pilipinong naghihintay sa second tranche ng SAP na dapat noong May pa na ipamahagi. Tapos ngayon nga, sinasabi sa atin na meron pang mga ganitong bara at meron mga nakumpleto na yung pagre-report ng mga LGUs pero hindi pa rin nare-releasean hanggang ngayon. So hindi po natin alam saan talaga yung para at paano ito, anong hakbang ang ginagawa ng DSWD para solusyonan talaga ito. But on to my next question, Mr. Chair. Yung kaugnay po ito sa tanong ng mga nanay sa 4Ps. Yung mga tanong nila, lalo ito yung mga miyembro ng 4Ps kung matatanggal sila sa Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino Program dahil nga sa conditionality na dapat ay pumapasok sa eskwela ang kanilang anak, ngayon nga sinabi mismo ng DepEd na 25% ng mga estudyante ang nag-drop out dahil sa kahirapang umangkop sa mga pamantayan ng balik eskwela at kakapusan din dahil sa krisis. Madadelist ba sila sa 4Ps? Kung madidelist sila, hindi ba dapat matanggap pa rin nila yung 5,000 to 8,000 dahil deductible lang naman yung benefit from 4Ps? Kasi di ba sa 4Ps po, kailangan may yung nag-aaral yung anak mo. Tama po ba yon? Kung hindi, anong mangyayari sa kanila kung hindi makakapag-aral ngayon? Hirap na hirap po yung mga nanay, kaya tinatanong nila ito kasi kailangan nila ng gadget, kailangan nila ng iPad, nire-require sila para sa internet, kailangan nila ng ganito at kung ano-ano pa. So some of them, o marami sa kanila, hindi talaga kakayanin na makapag-aral yung mga anak. What will happen to them?
DSWD?
Mr. Chair, may I request Director Gemma, the National Program Manager Officer of the 4Ps, to be recognized. Mr. Chair.
Yes, Director Gemma Gabuya.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Your Honor. So for the implementation of 4Ps, the Secretary issued a force majeure. Ibig sabihin po, suspended ang conditionalities hanggang period 4. That's until September po. So now, nakikipag-usap po ang DSWD with DOH and the Department of Education kasi sa August 24 ay papasukan na po, and we came up with an agreement. Ano po yung mga adjustments at flexibilities na to ensure na kung hindi man po makakapasok kung wala pong gadgets o mga bata o ang pamilya, other options should be provided to the purpose beneficiaries. Thank you, Your Honor.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I needed to ask that kasi ang sabi ng mga nanay, hindi lang po yung mga nanay, yung mga bata din, nahihirapan silang isipin kung saan pa nila kukunin yung pagbili ng mga gadget. In fact, meron kaming mga unverified reports of date rape kung saan ang kapalit ay gadget para sa mga bata na gustong makapag-aral. Nakakatakot po yung mga ganong condition. Pero meron po yan sa mga communities natin. Kaya kailangan po talaga nating pagbantayan at maipaliwanag ng mabuti sa mga nanay kung anong mangyayari sa kanila kung hindi sila makakapagpaaral ng anak at madedelist sila or yun nga, kung hindi sila it's good to know. It's good to know na sinasabi ng DepEd ngayon na suspended until September. Pero di ba required kasi mag-enroll ng anak eh. So ibig sabihin kung hindi man maka-enroll ngayon, hindi naman sila mawawala sa 4Ps na listahan. Ano po?
Opo.
Okay. Mr. Chair, isa pa pong tanong, kaugnay naman ito sa distribution of the second tranche of SAP. Binigyan ng AFP at PNP ng papel at responsibilidad sa programang ito sa whole of the nation approach. Ano po ang legal basis nito maliban sa pahayag ng Pangulo, saka yung, kasi kahit yung expired na Bayanihan Act, ang tingnan natin, malinaw na nakasaad, DSWD ang in charge sa pamamahagi ng ayuda sa beneficiaries. Madami namang trabaho na gustong pupoy ng security forces natin. Gusto ng PNP, sila na rin yung mag-house to house para i-check kung sino ang naka-home quarantine. Gusto rin nila na may papel sila sa pamimigay ng ayuda. Ang problema po, inaagawan ng trabaho ang mga Pilipinong pwede namang i-hire ng gobyerno para rito. Halimbawa, the DSWD must embark on beefing up its civilian capacity for aid distribution. Mag-hire ng mas maraming social workers. Kanina po narinig ko, you were asking for additional funds sa DBM para makapag-hire. Ano po? Lalo ngayon na record high ang kawalan ng trabaho sa bansa. So dapat po ganun natin tingnan yung pangangailangan ng ating mga kababayan.
Congresswoman Arlene, may hinihintay ka po bang sagot sa tanong mo?
Yung sa role ng PNP?
Kasi wala po tayong kasamang PNP ngayon. Kung maaari po ay sa susunod na hearing po ay iimbitahan natin ang PNP.
Okay, thank you Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, isa pa po kaugnay naman ito sa financial services providers. We are aware that the DSWD partnered with financial service providers for the release of the second tranche of SAP. May listahan po ba kayo nito?
DSWD?
Mr. Chair, Your Honor, meron po kami listahan ng mga financial service providers.
Mr. Chair, may we have...
Committee Secretary? Secretary, na ipasa nyo na po ba sa committee yung listahan na yan?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we will comply. Pero pwede ko na pong sabihin sa inyo kung sino yung mga financial service providers.
Gano'ng karami po ba yung sasabihin ninyo, Secretary?
Pakiulit po, Mr.
Ilan
Chair.
po yung ilan po yung kumpanya na sasabihin po ninyo?
Actually, 6 po ang
Sige po,
financial service
sabihin nyo na lang
providers.
po, Secretary.
Unang-una po yung RCBC, Robinsons Bank, Union Bank, StarPay, GCash, and Paymaya, Mr. Chair, Your Honor. But we will translate that into a document, Mr. Chair, Your Honor.
Mr. Chairman, hindi na po ba madadagdagan yung ating service provider? Kasi parang 6 lang ngayon.
Deputy Speaker Dan Fernandez.
Sorry.
Mr. Chair, this is my time.
Yes, Congresswoman Arlene Brosas, 6 po yun. Hindi nyo na po kailangan isubmit. May record naman po tayo ng lahat ng sinasabi po ninyo, Secretary, at lahat ng sinasabi ng bawat isa. At pati yung hindi sinasabi, naka-record po sa atin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, kaugnay po dyan, will the government pay these financial firms for any administrative and service costs? Meron po ba tayong binabayad sa kanila? And we'd like, Mr. Chair, if possible, we'd like to request a copy of the MOA of DSWD with these financial service providers para makita rin natin paano yung sharing ng accountability in case magkaroon ng aberya o bagal sa pamamahagi ng SAP, Mr. Chair. Meron po bang, una ko bang tanong, meron po bang binabayad tayo, no? May service cost po ba? Tapos, di kaya, at saka second, yung request po ng copy of MOA.
Secretary.
Mr. Chair, Your Honor, may I request Yusek Neri to be recognized, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Yusek Neri.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No cost on the part of the government po, Mr. Chair, and we will provide you a copy of the multilateral agreement, Mr. Chair.
Maraming salamat po. Congresswoman Brosas.
Yes, Mr. Chair, sa sinasabi po kasi ng mga nakakatanggap na nababawasan sila ng 50 pesos, no, nababawasan sila kapag kinukuha nila yung kanilang SAP. So, kasama po 'yon doon sa MOA, tama po ba? Na ang pagbawas sa kanila ay mula sa mga service providers.
Mr. Chair, if I may, if the beneficiary decides to withdraw the cash from the other partner outlets of the financial service provider, there is a minimal amount for the cash out fee po, Mr. Chair.
Congresswoman Brosas.
Yan. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tinatanong ko po kasi, di ba, ang binigay kasi natin ay 5,000 to 8,000. Babawasan pa yon dahil sa transaction. So, Mr. Chair, parang hindi naman yata okay yon, ano, na babawasan pa natin yung binigay na natin na minimal amount din naman ang binigay natin sa ating mga kababayan. But anyway, ayun po, siguro ito yung mga panghuli, no? Natanong ko na lang po, nag-request po sa DBM for an additional 5 billion supposedly for administrative cost for SAP. Na-approve po ba ito? Hiwalay ito sa 200 billion allotment released to DSWD in April. Tama po ba?
Kasama po natin ngayon ang DBM. Pasagutin po natin ang DBM. DBM. Hinihintay lang po natin yung DBM na sumagot via Zoom.
Sir, good afternoon. Good evening. Sir, may I recognize Assistant Director Jane Abella because she's handling the DSWD operations to answer the query of Representative Arlene Brosas. Mr.
Sige
Chair.
po, DBM.
Adir Jane, are you still around, Adir Jane?
Jane Abella of DBM, paki-unmute po at pwede na po kayong magsalita. Mukha pong nagpapahinga ang DBM ngayong oras na ito. Alam po ba ng DSWD kung naaprobahan po yung tinatanong ni Congresswoman Brosas?
Mr. Chair, Your Honor, may I request Director Wayne Belisar to answer the question of the Honorable Congresswoman.
Yes,
Mr. Chair.
Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Your Honor. So it may be recalled, Mr. Chair, that last March, Mr. Chair, sorry po. We requested from the Department of Budget a total funding requirement of 206 billion. And out of this 206 billion, the Department of Budget had released to DSWD 196 billion pesos for SAP. And apart from that, we were able to modify additional 10 billion pesos coming from internal funds of the SWD. So all in all, we have about 206 billion at hand. But the 5 billion that Your Honor was referring to for administrative cost, it wasn't provided to us by DBM, but only the a part of the amount that was supposed to be provided for the SAP grants. But nevertheless, based on our requirements, we allotted 59, almost 60 million for administrative cost for the administration of this program, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So wala pa lang nakuha na 5 billion added, ano, na supposedly for administrative costs. At ang inamit na pondo para sa administrative costs ay yung pondo rin ng DSWD. Tama po ba?
DSWD?
Yes, Mr. Chair, Your Honor, came from the budget of the SWD, which we modified for administrative cost purposes.
Do you have that costing, Mr. Chair? Baka pwede rin makahingi ng kopya niyan.
DSWD?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we will comply.
Salamat po. Congresswoman Arlene, meron pa bang kasunod yung last question mo, Congresswoman?
Last question, Mr. Chair. Breakdown lang, magre-request lang ako. Regional breakdown ng 12 million target beneficiaries per second tranche with corresponding progress status. Kasi po, similar to the table na ginawa ng Malacanang weekly reports, may we request the DSWD to provide a copy to this representation kasi mahalagang matiyak natin halimbawa na nasasaklaw pa rin ng second tranche kahit yung mga area na hindi na GCQ. So yun po yung last na question, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Pangatlong last question po ni Congresswoman Arlene, pero mahal po natin yan. DSWD, can you provide the documents needed by Congresswoman Arlene to this committee?
Yes, Mr. Honor, we will provide.
Maraming salamat po at maraming salamat sa kay Congresswoman Arlene Brosas
Mr.
at
Chair.
sa lahat ng bumubuo ng Gabriella Women's Party List. Napakaganda ng kulay ni Congresswoman Arlene ngayong araw na ito.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Deputy Speaker Villapuerte.
Earlier, Mayor Madel mentioned that the University President of UNEP issued a certification that there is no SAP distribution that happened. Can we get a copy of that, Mr. Chair, for in preparation of the committee report?
The committee secretary is hereby directed to secure the copy of the document needed by this committee.
Mr. Chair, also on record, Mayor Madel Alfilor mentioned in her letter to the committee and under oath that she is immunocompromised and type 2 diabetes. To protect her safety and health in this committee, may I request the committee that to request Mayor Madel to provide a medical certificate that she is immunocompromised and type 2 diabetic from a reputable government hospital, excluding Iriga City. Mr. Chair, may I move that she issue such medical certificate?
Mayor Madel, maaari ka po ba mag-issue ng medical certificate?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, yes.
Maraming salamat po.
And lastly, Mr. Chair, I would like to thank the DSWD family, particularly Sec. Rolly. They've been attending the hearings despite the fact that marami silang trabaho. We commend the leadership of the DSWD, sir. In fact, kayo pa ang unang dumating. Alas 12 nandito na kayo, wala pa yung mga USEC at Regional Director for the purpose of the committee. And also, of course, all the USECs and the DSWD family. Maraming salamat po sa pag-attend nyo po sa hearing. We are here to help and partner with you to address issues pertaining to SAP and other issues po. Maraming salamat, Sec. Rolly and sa DSWD family. Thank you, Mr. Chair.